Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Dota 2 Asia Championships. We've got 90 minutes before our matches start, and that means we've got a pre-show. I'd like to introduce our panel that we've got to start things off. On the far side, we've got David Parker. What's up, Professor?
I'm good. I'm looking like we got a good day of Dota 2 ahead of us. You're looking sharp as always.
Thank you. You as well. Yeah. Next down the line, we got a horse.
Who knows? You'll never guess who that is.
I'm still not sure. And then we've got Cinderin. Hey, buddy.
Hey.
How you doing?
Oh, damn, I was about to ask that. What are you doing? Yeah, I'm good. I got some good rest, which I really needed after that flight, but ready for what is probably going to be our shortest day, I guess, realistically.
I think so.
So it's a nice and slow warm-up, I guess you could say. It's the... Obviously, well, I guess you're going to be talking more about that, so I don't want to steal your thunder.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're doing well. Glad you could make it all the way to the States. It's a long trip.
Why does he get the horse head? Is that because he won the All-Star match? Is that like his reward? Is that what this is?
It's just a weirdo in general.
We're seeing the inner workings of the Captain's Draft tournament here. This is how you guys make decisions.
It's like... This is going to get awkward really fast, Shannon, if you keep doing that.
Right, I can see his eye through the hole in the nose, which is just there's an extra eye looking into my soul, and I just don't know how to feel about it. So, okay, we've got a lot to talk about here. A big event. Big event is around the corner. We've got over $2 million on the line. Parker, what can we expect here coming into the DAC? This is like the mini TI, as people are calling
it.
Yeah,
the International, the Oriental. It's
the Oriental.
Got its fair share of good and bad names. You can choose which of those ones is the bad one. I think it's pretty obvious, but these teams are treating this like a TI. It's bigger prize pool than TI1 as well as TI2. You need a drink or something here.
Look how red he is.
I'm glad you could join us.
Hello.
Where did he come from?
Welcome to the broadcast.
You guys don't have any idea how difficult it is to breathe in that. They do not have a disclaimer when you buy it. That's for sure.
Well,
you brought it on yourself. Oh, very appropriate. It's made in China, actually.
How perfect.
Very nice.
Saying that was the whole point.
Oh, really? That was not visible on camera.
It's still the year of the horse technically. It's not the ram yet.
Good.
That's true.
Thank you for that contribution.
Next year's the year.
That's very valuable.
That's what I bring to the table here.
All right.
Are any of you guys year of the horse? I'm year of the horse.
Huh?
1990?
No.
I think I'm the snake.
I'm old.
I'm 89.
Is that the snake?
I think so.
I'm a snake too.
Okay.
I think
I'm
not.
I think I'm a bull, if I'm not mistaken.
Bull.
I could be horribly wrong. Yeah.
Strike me as the bull type. So, okay, event overview. We've got a pretty decent prize pool here. Crowdfunded. None of that stuff is too crazy. The format is pretty straightforward, I think. We've all seen something pretty similar to TI, and we can take a look at it here. Sort of a flow chart of the event, and this is for the actual event itself. We have the qualifiers to get the teams here. There were quite a few teams invited, and you can see the wildcard teams to get things started on the left side. That'll be what we cover today, that 15-game round robin. Then we'll move into the group stage where the 2 top wildcard teams out of the 6 will be moving forward, the bottom 4 eliminated, where they square off against the 14 other teams that were, qualified and invited into this next round. After that, we move into the big bracket. The bottom 4 teams will be eliminated. Top 8 start in the upper bracket, and the 9th through 12th start in the lower bracket, where that first round is actually a best of 1 for potential elimination. So we've got a lot of content coming up over the next the next 2 weeks it is here. We've got 14 days of Dota 2 coverage. We get a little break in the middle, but there is a lot of Dota 2 around the corner.
It's kind of like a hybrid TI3 meets TI4 format, where we've got some of the teams 4 teams not being knocked out from the group stage, whereas 8 at TI4, but then the actual main event format where we're going to have the lower bracket with leading into kind of the winner bracket matches as well, with 8 teams in the win bracket as opposed to just the 4 that we had at TI. So it's good. I like the format.
Sid, I want your feedback on this format and your thoughts. Overall, do you like it?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Of course, it's always sad for the 4 teams that go there only to play the wild card, but those are the terms if you don't qualify directly, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I think you're happy to get the opportunity rather than just being knocked out directly before even going there, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, like David said, the hybrid format makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the exact format we could be seeing for TI5 even. I think it would make a lot of sense to do it this way. Maybe the wild card wouldn't have as many teams, but It's kind of taking the best of both worlds in a way
I
from
l- I
the
thi-
TI experience.
I think having just 8 teams in the main event wasn't quite enough. There was always like a few teams where it's like I feel like they missed out. Like I think
Oh,
getting
yeah.
rid of some of the weaker teams is good, and then also having 8 teams in the winner bracket. I felt TI was strange because you only had 4 teams in the winner bracket when you went to the main event. So it was this kind of weird where you win one match and suddenly you're guaranteed top 3, which was like your EG as well as newbie. And it's like, well, they just won 1B or 3. It's like they're already guaranteed $1 million.
And now
So
that I
this
think about
isn't
it,
technically Valve, but do you think they have any say on how the format of the tournament goes?
I would say influence. I would imagine they have their, opinion carries some weight, but
I guess it's been the inspiration
It's
for
hard
how
to
the
say.
tournament's run. At the end of the day, it's so similar to TI that's obviously been the inspiration for
I
how
mean,
it's run,
there's,
right?
there's
But
been an undoubted level of success through the last 4 TIs, so it would make sense the perfect world would want to emulate, a successul tournament.
Immortals, baby.
Yeah,
That's where it's at.
all about the
I
Immortals.
got my Ember Rapiers just today.
Oh,
as
yeah?
well as the Juggernaut sword. I'm ready to play some Ember Spirit. Tracking how many wards I plant, so support Ember Spirit.
0. Good.
Is that for
No,
real,
no,
the
support
gem?
Ember Spirit coming to a Dota 2 matchmaking pub near you.
it's actually not that bad. It's not that good either.
You
Uh,
say that about a lot of heroes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
How about that Coddle mid? I heard that's not so bad.
that's
either.
really good too.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really good. Yes, maybe we'll see that this tournament.
But I just wanted to add, David, because I was mentioning that this might be the format for TI5. I think Valve, did they say it directly or did they hint it that every team will be at the main event this time? I think everyone will
TI5?
get, everyone will get
When?
stage time.
Where?
I think that was
I don't
written
know.
somewhere. I can't
That's how it
remember
was for the other
I don't
TIs,
remember
but-
reading that, but
I call
I-
blasphemy.
even
No,
the-
I don't-
I remember. I don't know if there's an
Wait,
official
that-
announcement, but I think I remember
think so.
something about that.
I can't remember. I might be making stuff up, but
I think you're making.
I think
I-
it was just Reddit complaining about it, and it's probably going to happen because of it. So.
that's also
that
possible.
that is certainly a
Yeah,
possibility.
I guess we'll see. But anyway, this is very close to what we can expect out of that.
Mhm.
And it's a proven format that works really well. So
Yeah, so this time around we had 8 teams that were invited, 6 that came through qualifiers, and then we've got the wild card teams, which were a mixture of like 2nd and 3rd places. It kind of varied by region. But here we are with the invited teams. The Chinese teams, the big ones invited first, LGD, Vici Gaming, Invictus Gaming, and Newbie. The SEA teams invited MVP Phoenix, of course, hailing from South Korea. And then you've got Rave, the 2 Western teams that made it into the main event. Team Secret and Team Evil Geniuses. We're going to be talking about specific rosters coming up a little bit later in the pre-show, as there's been a pretty big shuffle in the West. And we haven't really talked about it yet. No one's really talked about it because we haven't seen the teams play with their new lineup. So this event sort of serves as a big event in general, but also a new kind of platform for these new rosters.
Definitely made the invites like a bit weird. Weird at the same time. It's like, well, these are probably the teams deserving of the invites, but suddenly they've got new rosters. It's like, well, they're still being invited. Secret haven't even played a match with their new roster. Then you got EG who played just the D2L where they did all right. So, well, they got I think 4th place, 3rd place. No, they got 3rd place out of 4 teams there. So. It's hard to say how these teams are going to do. Obviously, that was like their roster's first event, so I think all these teams have been boot camping and preparing a lot for DAC.
Yeah, undoubtedly. I mean, even players have been keeping private, not streaming. Keeping their strategies and stuff quiet.
They've still been.
I've noticed Twitter has
kinda-
been a little more quiet than usual. I don't know. I have big hopes for some fun pocket strats coming into this.
I think if history tells us anything, they're going to struggle. To be honest, teams that come in for the first LAN experience with the
Who
like
you
two
mean?
like
who's
EG
they,
and
you mean?
Secret,
Oh, okay. Just
like
the new.
they're
the new
extremely
blood.
talented from like a player standpoint, but there's. I mean, I guess EG has a little bit more experience because what did they play before?
D2L.
It was D2L. I don't know if we can. I don't know. I do not see. I want them to do well because there's not that many Western teams in this tournament.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if history's gonna say anything, I don't think they're gonna do well. To be honest.
Yeah, it's quite
You
possible.
agree?
I
You just said yeah.
yeah, maybe. I don't know. That
You've
was
got in
just,
there.
You got me locked in.
He doesn't want to have an opinion.
It's okay.
I can tell.
I don't know. I guess they're sort of the underdogs looking in this tournament. Like, I think this event was originally designed to be for Chinese only, and then adding in all of the Western teams and making it a true global event was sort of it came a little later down the line than originally planned. So I'm glad that there's Western teams here in general, so we can see a true global event and not just a Chinese all-star tournament.
And that North American team, Cloud9, boy,
Yeah,
they're looking real
hailing
good. I think
all the way from North America. Some long flights there. Yeah, they had a good time in the qualifier.
Yeah.
It was an intense series, 3-2 over Fire. It was
No, it was pretty close. Yeah.
it was very close. That was.
But then again, that's almost like a brand new roster as well. So
Yeah.
I mean, they've had time to practice, they've had time to scrim, but no real matches to speak of other than that for Cloud9, and then of course EG, a little bit in D2L, and Secret nothing, literally.
Yeah.
pubbing.
Was EG
Screaming.
playing with the same roster they have now in D2L? Was Sumail with them
Yes.
then? It was? Okay.
Yes.
I'm excited to see Sumail on the big
He's
stage.
fun to watch.
Yeah. 15-year-old.
The old Yule Shadow Fiend, I freaking love that. That is so cool.
Yeah, that your style?
It's not, but
the
I
soul
like
bomb?
it. the insta-give with the Requiem.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty
fun
sick.
to watch.
Yeah,
Type.
it's really nice.
That's cool. What are you looking forward to, Parker?
You're
You're just looking excited in general over there.
I've been like dancing around jamming to Taylor Swift, you know. I'm a little more down because we had to turn the Taylor Swift off when we started the broadcast, so I'm
It's a
definitely
tough life.
not as hyped as I once was. But I'm just excited in general. It's going to be the best Dota we've seen since TI4, and obviously I think the playstyle now, like just the metagame, is kind of developed in a way that the games are just going to be more exciting in general. Obviously,
More Juggernaut. Axe.
Yeah.
Juggernaut.
you know, people
More.
people are giving these heroes crap, but they're going to produce some exciting games.
They will, for sure.
I mean, of all the like fun carries, I think Axe is one of the more fun ones to watch. I'd much rather watch Axe over more Naga games or these long drawn out.
I still think they're going to be pulled out. Some of the games, the Naga games, are still going to be.
Naga games.
I think so.
I
Remember
think
the days of old with Medusa? I mean, Medusa's played, but it just doesn't feel the same as like Dota 1, where you purchase a rapier, put it on Clinks, or put it on Medusa. Like you get a rapier from somebody else somebody else farms it and gives it to the Medusa.
Yes,
These
old
old
school
school strategies.
That was like the darkest times of Dota, I feel.
That was
god awful.
That was a great time. Me and my friend used to do this PA Nature's Prophet. He would just farm jungle Nature's Prophet and pull me like 2 rapiers.
Well, it's fun for you, but the other 9 players is miserable.
Hey, what do you mean? Well, my friend who just farms me rapiers is having a great time.
Okay, let's
He's cliff jungling in.
from a he cliff jungles a divine rapier. That doesn't sound feasible. I don't know. Don't try that at home, but yeah, that's
in my 2K MMR games, that's what happened. It works.
It's still a strategy I think that's a strategy we've never seen any team use, where someone farms a rapier to lose it on purpose to then have that guy killed and get the rapier on another hero. We still haven't seen that.
No, I don't think we have.
sounds like it's gonna happen then.
This could be the
It's
event.
happening. Yeah.
We haven't seen level 1 Roshan. I want some level 1 Roshes.
Yeah, that's
true.
true.
That's
It's
How
that's
many
been the
will we
biggest-
get a level 1 Roshan? I feel like we have to at some point.
I'm gonna say.
Are you
no.
saying an attempt or a kill? I think we'll definitely have an attempt. Will we have a kill? I don't know.
I feel like if we have an attempt, we have a kill.
Honestly, I think because of the bounty
hasn't
rune
happened at all.
situation, like there's going to be traffic in that area no matter what. It's going to be really tough to get level 1 Roche off.
Yeah,
I think that's the biggest change for Roche.
I think somebody will try with all these best of ones in the wild card and the group stage. We've got like 15 wild card games, and it's 120 games in the 16-team round robin. So of all those matches, I feel like somebody will try to do some cheese in the Roche pit, pun intended. But I don't know. What do you think? Is level 1 Roche viable on this patch with the change to the pit and the bounty runes and all that? Is it?
Yeah.
What do you need to pull it off, I guess, is the question.
I don't think it's different from what it was before, because at the end of the day, either you scout it or you don't. And if you want to go and secure the bounty rune, how often when you go and secure the bounty rune as Radiant, for example, do you venture into the Roche pit first? Because it's one of the best traps to make level 1, to make First Bloods as well.
Right.
So I think one thing we could see is teams having lineups that have Roche potential, and then they use that as a mind game and hide in the Roche pit and get the other team to come with 2 or 3 heroes and get the First Blood, maybe double kill there.
That doesn't count as a Roche, though.
That's not a Roche, but that's I mean,
similar
it's another way of using the
fight
Roche
at the
pit.
Roche
Level
pit.
1.
And in general, level 1 Roshan kills Roshan before the horn anyways, or around the horn. So even if the other team's going for the banner rune, it's like, well, they get there and then suddenly Roche is dead. And
Yeah,
like,
if you do
you're
the
fighting
TP
you're fighting a
if you
team
do
who's
the TP play.
you're fighting a team who's level 2 potentially, and level 2 heroes are a lot stronger than level 1 heroes.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
It could be interesting.
Mott knows.
Scientifically proven.
Where's Mott when you need him?
2 is better than 1. Wow.
Wait, let me get. Where's a piece of paper? I need.
Well,
to
it's
write
like
that down.
the difference between a level 2 and a level 1 hero versus like the difference between a level 9 and a level 8 hero is extraordinary.
All right,
know?
random theory crafting question, because I always stray off. I truly apologize.
No,
but
please.
Okay,
We've
this
penciled in some time
This
for
is more a question for Cinderin and the horse. When you level 1 rush, and we've talked about this before, I just want to hear
So
you
why
say
are
it
you
on
asking?
stream. I don't know, actually. It's a good question. But regardless, I'm going to continue to go as if you didn't say that. When you level 1 rush,
You've
why
never
don't
asked
you
that before.
give... Are you sure? Why don't you give the experience to one person instead of all 5? Do you think one person that's level 5.5 is more valuable than having your whole team level 2?
I think it depends on the hero, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's say... Okay, well, we can talk about heroes another time, but... I mean, in general, I feel like if you have one matchup that just dump... Like, you get level 6 within the first 30 seconds of the game, I feel like you win the game,
I
period.
think it would be pretty crazy to start a game with a level 5.5 Meepo, for example.
Yeah.
That would be pretty
Well,
legit.
the problem is it's not really. It's also super high risk and not really
Yes.
possible, because that means everyone has to get away, and that one hero has to be able to finish off Roshan. Like, you have to leave Roshan on like very specific low enough HP that one hero can kill it in. it does. I feel more feasible is maybe sharing the XP between 2 heroes. I think you get 2 level 4 heroes, which I think is
pretty
I think
good.
that's like the
better.
optimal. To
That's
me, that's
better.
better than 1 level 5.5 heroes.
I would agree.
2 level 4 heroes, I think, is the optimal. That's actually been done before. I don't know if it was Dota 2 or even back in Dota 1.
I've seen the 1 hero as well in Dota 1.
You've seen the 1 hero,
Yeah.
okay.
But
I've seen
none Dota 2.
I've seen a lot of the 2 hero level 4 where it would be 2 heroes going to lane level 4 and just like, what do you do? Like
Yeah,
these,
that's
like,
extremely
There was a
powerful.
Shadow Fiend +1 kind of thing, which where it was like a Shadow Fiend and a carry that were both level 4, and it's just.
Can you
it's
imagine like a
GG.
Jakiro Undying offlane where they both start at level 4? Oh my god,
GG.
dude, that would be disgusting.
Yeah, or a Cuddle solo mid level 5.5.
Oh,
Wow, that'd
That
be
sounds-
the
insane.
that
biggest
sounds like
waste of
the,
experience I've ever heard in my life.
This guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, this guy.
This guy.
Oh.
This guy.
It's not a guy. It's a horse. It's a
Yeah.
decapitated horse.
I do think Dota's in a good spot right now, though, in terms of like hero flexibility. I feel like there's a lot of heroes to choose from. Or even just somewhat recently, we've seen huge flexibility. We've seen some Queen of Pain. We've seen some Blood Seekers. What do you think, like craziness style? Like, are we going to see a lot of variety across hero picks? Like, could we see a Huskar pop out? Could we see a Techies? Could any of these crazy heroes actually come to light?
It's a lot of best of ones. Techies is not in captain's mode still, right?
Yes, he is.
Yes,
he is now.
he's in.
Oh,
He's
oh yeah,
in
he
it.
is. Never mind. Yeah.
You had me paranoid for a second. I was like, wait a second.
Yeah,
Did I
you're
dream
right.
that?
he's been in captain's draft too, so we should remember that
Yeah.
he got ported after that, I think, to see.
Well, that was.
that was a little bit of a special
Yeah.
case. But he's one of the new heroes.
Mhm.
Techies, I think we're going to see at least once.
really.
Hopefully.
Really?
Hopefully.
Is that wishful
0
thinking, or is
times.
that actually?
I think we
You
might
really
see it.
think
I
so?
think some of the teams have practiced it.
It has to be a
honest.
final pick, obviously.
It's been picked by Vici Gaming, right?
It didn't go well though.
No, but they
Wasn't
have
it
tried
Black
it.
that
Yeah, I
picked
think
I
it was.
think
I think it was
Black
maybe even random too.
But they-
Apparently it was
oh.
random.
Oh, okay.
That's a nice random.
That's
Yeah.
unfortunate. But yeah, Techies is one of the heroes I think we can see. Whenever you have such a long tournament and so many games, what was it, 120 games at
In
least?
the group
In
stage
the group
alone,
stage
is
alone, right?
120.
So then you're going to have the majority of the hero pool there. An honorable mention I want to go for. I think instead of there's going to be some crazy picks. I think
Swear to God, if you say Coddle.
no, he is going to get picked, but not in solo mid. How many heroes do we have now in CM? 100.
Didn't know there was going to be a quiz.
6, 7.
Something like
Five,
that.
four?
There's a couple of heroes that still aren't in CM. Earth Spirit.
I'm just staring at you. I don't have.
Our Spirit and
PL.
Do you want me to
I think
load up
that's it.
Dota 2 and
Earth
count
Spirit's
them
the
one
only-
by
the only
one?
two. So
Yeah,
it's
I
like
think so.
105, I think, or something. 106. I think out
Yeah.
of those, we're going to have at least 90 in the group stage. I would be surprised if we don't.
in the group stage. Okay.
Yeah. When we get to the later portion of the tournament, when it's
Okay.
the best of threes, I think
It'll narrow down a bit.
the chance that you get odd picks there. There's kind of the tournaments always define their own meta during their group stage, and then
Right.
from that point on, some heroes are just
Yeah.
top tier.
Who's the hero of the tournament?
The hero of the
Vengeful Spirit.
tournament.
There's always one hero, like
Well,
Razor for TI4, which was disgusting.
And then sometimes those heroes get overused or overvalued. Like I think if you look at maybe Skywrath Mage at TI4, it was definitely kind of the hot pick, but at the same time it got overvalued by a lot of teams. So.
So did
Okay.
Razor.
Yes,
Did it?
Razor was
It
awful.
had like a win rate of 45%.
there was
or
like
something.
2 or 3 teams that
some
played it
teams
really
were
well,
really
and everybody
good.
else
Yeah,
got dumped.
exactly.
But you look at exactly. You look at Vici Gaming and EG's record with the hero, and it was like 85%
Yeah.
win rate.
Yeah, which means everyone else is like 33.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, they were really
It's
good with that
109 heroes, by the way. That is the tally of.
hero. Yeah, so we have 107 in CM.
Yeah.
Or there are 109 heroes in total. I think.
Yeah. So 107 in CM.
Okay,
So
yeah.
just for the sake of accuracy.
I think Elder Titan is a hero I like. This is just a tangent, I guess. But out of all the heroes that have been popular in the past, I think Elder Titan is the one that makes the least sense to me that he disappeared. I don't understand where that hero went. Some teams were playing it a lot,
I would agree.
and now that teams are playing this kind of, there's a lot more what we call face rush. Is that what we call it still? At least
I
now.
like
for
that.
the
Do you have a
sake of
better
what we're
phrase
going
for
Balls
it?
deep?
balls deep style.
Balls deep is
But
not appropriate, but works. It's
So
appropriate,
that's,
but not.
So that's his name for it, right? It has to be inappropriate. I think Elder Titan is actually really good against this kind of lineup that wants to rush in with multiple very tanky cores you run in with. Like we've talked about, Axe, Juggernaut, Troll are 3 of the very popular heroes right now that just are difficult to deal with. Elder Titan has great counterplay potential. He's a solid offlaner, and I think there's being put less emphasis on shutting down the offlaner entirely, which is something Elder Titan really suffered from in the past. And now offlaners are starting to get a little bit more ground, I feel, in the game in general. So I'd like to see that hero some more. I think all of those tanky cores just get screwed over by by the Ancestral Spirit and the Aura. So I could imagine. What do you think? Why did that hero disappear? It doesn't make sense to me.
I mean,
he was like a first pick, and now he's gone.
We talked about it a lot in Star Ladders. Where's the Elder Titan? And he just never popped up. Especially with like how Roche now, the pit's a little bit smaller. He controls that pit like it's his job, man.
Extremely good at that as well. Extremely good objective-based hero. Counters tanky cores, which a lot of people play.
Nothing was changed in the patch, right? Any recent patch?
No.
Astral Spirit damage was like barely. I think they lowered it by 20 per level or something. It was
he
like
was
a
still
minor
popular
tweak.
after that, though. I think the time when he was first
since then there
picked
hasn't been anything.
Yeah,
there was the bug fix that especially Aoi was using a lot. That thing where you could
I think that's the
control
thing.
it in
Is
a way
Stomp
while
had
or
like
something.
a much greater radius on its AOE because of some little tricks you could do, and that's where some teams were really prioritizing
like when
it.
you were casting the Stomp, you could like make it scoot a little bit so it would like activate like 50 units further than it looked like it would.
And there was another bug, like when the spirit's coming back, you could cast the Stomp, but the spirit wouldn't stop moving to cast. It would still move to you, but Stomp
so
while
now
it's
it
moving.
stops during the movement.
Yeah, and that's how it
That's
was
better
intended
sometimes,
to be.
though. I don't know. That's
situational.
Yeah.
I still feel like the hero's strong if you get rid of the Astral Spirit little bugs, though. I mean,
I think that's the number one hero for me that is underpicked with how teams play right now.
What about Venomancer, since we're on the idea of underpicked heroes?
Is he underpicked?
I don't know that he's underpicked. I think he's really strong. I think he's been picked a lot, but could be picked more. How do you deal with him? If he goes like Midas, if he's able to get like go mid, get a Midas, and then just go into a pretty quick Ags Blink like Veil, how do you deal with it? It's like the only answer I've seen is don't get hit by it, and that's not so viable with a Blink
or when the
dagger.
fight's really fast.
Yeah.
Which I think that's perhaps the weakness of the hero right now is that the team fighting right now, when you build a lineup around Troll Juggernaut, I'm going to keep coming back to those heroes because they are like the flavor of the month, right? But when you have lineups where those heroes are in focus, the team fights are really short. Like those heroes kill off targets within the blink of an eye, right? So against that, Venomancer is not so good. He's better at the extended fights where you get to use the full effect of the Poison Nova, you get to reset and reinitiate the fight, which I think we can definitely see. I think one of the teams that comes to mind that have been good at running Venomancer was Ninjas in Pajamas, I believe, have been running it with some success.
Oh yeah, that's their go-to, man. That's
the one thing. The one reason I think Veno is picked less than he was is just that towers are less valuable, and that was one of the strengths of the hero, was both defending and claiming towers with the Plague Wards. And now that they give less gold, they're easier to defend with the glyph and everything. That's a big blow to the Venomancer, who didn't get a buff after that either. I think he's been untouched since that patch. So
to me, his biggest weakness is that his timing window just comes too late. We're seeing the fights and the aggression happen like around the 15-minute mark or so, and Veno at that point, like if you're talking about getting an Ags Blink Midas, like you're not getting these items until 25 minutes at least. Like
usually
his timing comes much later than all these other heroes like Axe. I mean, Jug you don't often see spending more priority on farming, but these offlaners like Axe, we're seeing a lot of these mid heroes. We're seeing a much more get involved early to take basically apply pressure on the opponents, and I feel like the Veno is too passive for that playstyle.
Yeah, definitely a bit more passive if you go
that to me is the hero's like not so much weakness, but just where he doesn't quite fit right now.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I still think he's really strong as a core. I mean, if you play him as support, you can be a little bit more aggressive, but I don't think it really works in today's game.
Support Veno died when Gale got nerfed.
Yeah,
that was the reason.
25 damage. You don't like that?
Costs
or is it 0 damage?
Zero
damage at level 1.
It costs 125 mana instead of 90.
Hey, it's a great slow. You know.
Well, I didn't die.
Those level 1.
You can't.
Perfect.
Yeah, your level 1 gank is just.
It's weak sauce, as Merlini would say. It's poopy.
Yeah.
It's no good.
Yeah.
And then you get owned.
And then you get owned.
But I think with like getting those two, like you're saying, his window is 25 minutes. But once he gets that, he is disgustingly good.
He is really good.
I mean,
and Veno AA is still viable if you can make it past that like 35-minute mark when they both get Ags and then you get a Veil out. It's just
that is
absurd
an
how much
amazing
damage
combo.
they do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Still works, but it
will be picked. Don't worry.
I think it'll certainly
combo
be
as
picked.
well will be picked.
It reminds me of Dro Visit, just one of those duos that like is kind of obvious. People know to expect it, but it still pops in there every so often.
And you can combine a lot of other heroes with Veno with that logic. Like Spectre could be pulled out. You could pull out Zeus. There's so many. All of those just AoE damage heroes that can finish the targets off when they get low are really good.
Yeah.
That's another type of strategy we haven't seen that much. The global strat hasn't been picked much, and I think we're not going to see it that much once again because of those. The face roll strat is going to destroy that pretty much because those heroes need time to come online. But in the right situation, you could get away with it.
That's kind of where Zeus has made this like oscillating kind of graph with pick, where it's like he was really strong, and then face rush is not what Zeus wants to go up against, even though he's pretty good against those tanky heroes. So it'll be interesting to see how the meta evolves over the 2 weeks. That's the other thing. It's just a long time, a lot of Dota, so it's there's pretty good window for picks to evolve and teams to adapt to each other.
And it could be that's one of the fascinating things for me about LAN that we always talk about, that the tournament gets its own meta, because the meta is defined by the team that's playing well, not necessarily by what's the best strategy in the version. Like, you could say that's a one-to-one relation, but at the end of the day, the best team, the team that wins, isn't necessarily the one that understands the version the best, but they've just found a solution that's really good right now, and then maybe 2 weeks down the line, there's an easy counter to it that no one comes up with, or that takes time to practice. So it's always funny to see how when the group stage starts, and maybe when you get into a bit of the main event, that there's like there's always 1 or 2, maybe sometimes up to 4 dominating teams that have a playstyle, and then the others try to copy that. And if those teams are extremely good at playing a global strat, that could be like the metagame of the tournament, which
that could be fun.
Which you could counter probably pretty easily by playing other stuff. But if they're really good at it, then the other teams will be like, "This strategy is so good, we have to do it." And
what do you guys think about? Sorry, what do you guys think about Abaddon Omni?
Together or in general?
No, just in general. Like, I don't feel like
dual lane mid.
Well, that's something we
against
would do.
Coddle.
But in general, I feel like even though they're picked somewhat, they're still underpicked heavily.
Yeah.
I mean, Omni Knight's ridiculously good.
He's extremely good against face rush, which is why I would love to see that hero.
Yeah.
Like
just rush and Ags, and you don't even have to be on the freaking vicinity
you
of
could get
the fight.
an Ags, but I don't even know if that's that important. It's more just about the fact that there's so much physical damage being played right now. Let's be honest. That you're picking these cores that just hit so extremely hard and extremely fast. Guardian Angel is just #1 reset button against that. It's the best skill in the game against physical heavy lineups, which everyone's playing right now. So. The only weakness is that he doesn't really offer that much in lane as a support, but if you can get around that by either having the core in the lane be a really dominating core like a Gyro, who can keep the offlaner away pretty much on his own with Rocket Barrage, for example, or something like that, you could make it work.
What about as an offlaner?
He can work like that
I mean,
too.
we've seen it.
I wanna say he's
as a solo offlaner, I think no.
On Radiant that works. On Dire, no. The
Why
offlanes
Radiant?
The offlanes are still so different. Like,
I think their offlane's easier on Dire now.
Really?
From my experience, and from people I've talked to, it seems that most people seem to prefer Dire offlane. Okay. It used to be all about Radiant. Like, it used to definitely be Radiant.
Got a good old-fashioned disagreement here, boys. I like this.
I'm just wondering what changed that made Dire so much better. Because the only thing that's been changed was the Roche Pit has been moved, which is a nerf to the Dire, if you will. And then the Ancients aren't really in a much better position than they were before. If for some heroes, I guess it might be better. It's a little safer to farm them, maybe. But as far as the lane structure itself, the only thing that was changed was that the Dire offlane starts up a little bit higher. But if you get a really good block on the Radiant, you can actually still pull the wave down and start in the position. And then you still have that flanking angle where the offlaner can't really come close to the creeps because you can always just be initiated around the trees, where the same play on the Radiant is much harder to pull off still, in my opinion. So I think Radiant offlane is better. I guess we'll see over the course of the tournament how that's going to work out. But I think Omni Knight as an offlaner can work. As a solo offlaner, very situational. If there's a really strong lane, you're not going to get anything. But on the Radiant, you can sometimes get away with it, in my opinion. On the Dire and yours, I guess.
Okay, so sometimes offlane Omni Knight works. That was the answer to your question.
Thank you so much,
okay,
everybody.
so Abaddon. Abaddon. Say it. Abaddon.
Abaddon.
All right, close. No,
that
was terrible.
You and Merlini, man, we're going to have to come up with punishments.
I'm sorry, it's just one I will never change. It sounds awful.
But it's just wrong. It's not even open to a debate. You're
just like
just saying it wrong.
Windrunner is wrong.
No, that's not even close. Those are different words.
Excellent.
How about this?
I'm with you.
You're with
Chad's
me?
team. Yep.
Okay. That's all I need. I just need one person backing me up, and I'm good to go.
That's fine. So we have like the wrong side. He was also wrong about the offlane.
I like this.
This is the side where we know what's.
Can we change the colors on these and get like black and white? Get the good guys, the bad guys.
This is like green and that one's red. So this is like the side that is always right. We get like.
Oh yeah, we're the thumbs up. You guys are the.
What about the horse?
Abaddon though.
This guy's the mediary right here.
We're in trouble.
We'll talk about Abaddon and then we got to move on.
Yeah, so Abaddon can. I also think with these face rush lineups, there's a lot of potential together with them, not so much against them. He's really good at enabling those cores to just run in and be unobstructed, right? So when you're trying to counter a troll, you will inevitably get some stuns or something, some lockdown, so that he can't just run at you and shut you down. But if he's playing with an Abaddon, I think that can easily work out. But kind of has the same problem as Omni Knight does, not that good at dominating the lane. Kind of, if you want to win a lane with Abaddon, you need the core to do the work.
Right.
And
I think it's the hero is picked entirely like for the lane set. Like you look at it with Navi, it's always these dual lanes in the off lane with Go Black as well as Funnick, and it works really well there. I think it's less about the mid game playstyle and just purely about because they prioritize getting Funnick a lot of farms. So they put him on a Clinks, a Weaver, whatever it may be in the off lane. Yeah, and just keep him alive. They win these 2v3 lanes sometimes even. So
yeah. That is definitely something to keep an eye out for. So we got some Na'Vi games coming up tonight.
That's true.
You guys pumped up? You guys ready?
I'm so pumped
Hopefully
up right now.
people are thinking right now, where do I
so
watch
pumped
these
up right
games?
now.
I'm so pumped up.
He's
I don't
so
know if you can
amped.
tell.
All right.
Boy, oh boy.
You can never tell when.
He walks off the runway right into the studio. He's just ready. There's that dedication, that passion.
I think there'll be some good games today.
You can tell if he's pumped. If he starts swearing, he's pumped.
You like this? He thinks there might be some good games today.
I think so.
That's hype.
I mean,
that's
there's
hype
two
right
teams
there.
I know nothing about.
I mean,
at all,
maybe
but, you
there
know.
might be some okay things happening at some point tonight. I don't know. You'll have to wait and
Well,
see.
I mean, one team is sponsored by Pacemaker, so they have to be good. Okay?
Energy pacemaker.
I mean, that's,
you're right.
that's life or death situation there.
It is.
That's a very important sponsor.
I just want to make sure they're not actually sponsored by anything that has to do with pacemakers, right?
Nobody knows.
I
We
don't
don't
think
actually
so.
know.
I don't
knows.
actually know.
I
But
don't think so.
what is
why
an
would
energy?
you know?
That would
Why
be the
would you
coolest
choose
sponsor.
that name though?
But
okay,
what
if
is
you're
an
not
energy
sponsored-
pacemaker?
I
All
have-
pacemakers
I would
require
like to
energy.
let me just bring up a few other names Chinese teams have
Doesn't-
chosen. Hearts Get Together.
That's great. I love that.
I like
name.
that. Hyper Glory Team. That was the name
That's
they changed
great,
it. That's
too.
awful. That's
Hyper Glory
That's
Team. What's
hyper
good
great.
about that?
It's so
Hyper
stupid.
glory.
It's good. See, Pacemaker
Energy
is not
Pacemaker
funny
is-
in any way. You
It's
can't
very
make it funny.
stupid.
It's ridiculous and it's not funny. Okay, that's
Okay.
Says the guy who wears a horse in his
the
head.
horse agrees with me on this
Hey.
one. I can hear him. I can
Oh,
hear his
no.
thoughts. I'm
Oh,
very
no.
weird.
Oh man. So okay, we're gonna have 3 streams running simultaneously here for all of the coverage except for the main event, which is coming up a ways away. So here's our schedule for today. We've got our main stream here on Beyond the Summit. The secondary stream will be DotaCinema from our upstairs studio, and then old Coddle Guy, he'll be taking helm on BTS 2. Tonight we'll have 5 matches running simultaneously for a total of 15 games. The top 2 will be the ones moving on to the main event. Bottom 4 eliminated. Sorry, you're going home early empty-handed, but you got a free trip to China, so at least you get something.
Do
You're
they
not
get
really
to
going
stay?
home early.
Yeah, they get to stay,
They get
right?
to stay, right?
Well, they're
Oh, man,
going
that
home.
would be a huge punishment.
No,
though. You guys
are out. Get the hell out of
Just
here. Go
deport
back.
them the hell out of
That's,
there.
I don't think that's the way it works. But in terms of the group stage today, head-to-head will be the way they deal with tiebreakers, and then if there's some sort of a 3-way tie where the head-to-head is all even, then we move into tiebreakers as needed. So chance it could be a short night or day today, only 5 games without tiebreakers, or we could go the stretch and be here until the sun comes up.
Is it an infinite loop? Did we get any information about the tiebreakers yet?
Nope.
What about the tiebreakers?
TI4 had that.
Yeah, but it
But
didn't
didn't
get to that
happen.
point, thankfully.
Oh, you mean like if you do like a 3-way
Like
tie
the
and then they tie
tiebreakers.
again?
Hmm.
I would assume
How-
it's
how infinite
something
were
based
Valve
on
willing to
time
go?
Time rating.
They didn't say. They just crossed their fingers.
Yeah,
that
they,
it
yeah.
didn't.
They
Yeah.
didn't think that far ahead, I don't think, for that one.
That sounds like the Valve approach. Just
Infinite
hope
is
for the best.
scary. I don't know. I don't like that. There's just so
If it
much
gets
mystery.
too late, I'm just going to cast with this bad boy on.
Yeah.
I
Oh, good.
think.
Good. The silent
Pretty
cast.
sure.
All right, let's hope we don't get that far.
Yeah, you never know. It could be.
Depending on how many games, we may have to be concerned for your health in terms of suffocation
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah, that's
Depending on how many hours
half
we're
a
talking.
game.
that is
10 minutes. And
He was already
Oh,
losing his
Lord.
breath during the intro here.
It was boy.
So
I don't know how people wear this. Like people wear this in public. Like they go to the mall and they exercise.
maybe they put like holes in it. Or
Why
they have
would
a-
you do that?
maybe they
sorry,
have
but is-
oxygen
why
running
would
underneath.
you
Is,
do
is
It's
this
America.
Is this?
Okay.
Let's say this is going to be an America thing because like.
They don't
people-
wear
like,
horse heads in
I
Australia.
would just like to
Honestly-
correct you. People do not do this in public.
Yeah.
Like,
In
as
America-
a general statement, people do not.
Okay, generally speaking, yes. But in America, sometimes you might see a horse head every now and then,
Okay.
and it's perfectly normal.
you
normal
might
behavior.
see it now and then, and it's perfectly normal.
Yeah, it's perfectly normal to see it now and then.
Can I hop
what
over
I'm
to
gonna
your
say.
guys' side? I'm talking about.
we got a saboteur over here. He's like, all right, I'm done. I want to go
Yeah.
to the correct side. Keep your Abaddon to
You
yourself.
need to prove yourself to get over here. I think.
I think
You
you
need
need
to-
Prove
you need
my prove my dire off lane. That's what will
Uh-oh,
happen.
here we go.
We got to come back.
Gonna
to that
eat
one.
a horse head on stream if you're right about that.
Dire off lane versus Raiden off lane. I don't know.
We'll keep tabs on that. We'll have to crunch some numbers. So, all right, folks, we're going to have a short break. We've got our first match starting in about 50 minutes. For now, we're having a break, then come on back. Part 2 of the pre-show coming up after this.
touch the sky, feel alive, we can fly. We can
Welcome back to the Dota 2 Asia Championship pre-show, part 2. We made the switcheroo. Old Shannon's upstairs getting set up, and we brought in LDZ.
He wanted a
Brought
little,
on the other old guy.
little personal. Ouch. Jeez.
That's harsh.
It's early, man. It's almost my bedtime. Just take it easy.
Yeah.
He wanted some personal time, the horse. I mean,
Oh,
Yeah.
right. Disappeared in the
Yeah.
bathroom. Enough said.
And
Now
no
we
one
can talk
wanted to be
Dota.
part of that.
good, good. Now we can
Yeah,
talk
now-
about the real stuff.
yeah, that's a good point. He's gone. We can get serious.
So, part 2, we want to talk about the teams. This is where we want to delve into the individual teams, look at their rosters, and talk a little bit about the roster changes and the stuff that's been going on in the scene. Because we haven't been doing it in the studio, there haven't been a lot of news shows, and I feel like there's just so much that's happened across the Dota 2 verse.
Yeah, and we haven't seen a whole lot of them. I cast a little bit of the new Cloud9 with No Tail Misery stepping in as supports, and they seem a little more aggressive and also just focused on winning the lanes a bit more, I would say, compared to what we saw of Pylai, AUI. AUI obviously known for focusing more on farming early on. Pylai, the very classic sacrificial support, but I feel like these two might be a nice change for Cloud9. They give them a little more intensity in the laning stage. Big Daddy was going around making plays. It also opens up their tactics in the laning stage. Obviously, AUI a great jungler, but generally he plays a very greedy, farm-oriented one. And Big Daddy was going around with those early 2 creeps on Chen, making things happen. So I like this duo. I think they have a lot of potential. To me, out of all the teams that have their rosters changed, I'm actually most confident that Cloud9's going to do well.
I kind of thought that at the time, but like I think they weren't very impressive during the qualifiers. I mean, they had a rough time against Cloud9, against Fire.
Yeah,
That
they certainly did.
they were a new roster, but at the end of the day, like just by individual talent alone, I felt like that should have just been a straightforward 3-0. To me, that was like a what's going on here? This is
I think Fire also brought their A game, though. Fire was playing really well.
yeah.
They were on fire. Whoa.
Oh,
Right, I'm glad I switched sides here.
yeah. chose wisely.
The right side will come back. Don't worry. We'll find our second wind.
Will we?
I hope so. We better. It's too early to not find the second wind.
Yeah, there's so many interesting. I don't know if they're grudges, but the fans are creating rivalries, even where there maybe aren't any. Of course, Big Daddy booted / mutually left. Secret sounds like he was more booted, but in a very respectful way. Supposedly they're friendly, but I mean, even the nicest guy in the world is going to have a little chip on his shoulder. Want to show them that they made a mistake, and also Big Daddy's a competitor. This guy wants to win badly, so I'm looking forward to seeing him match up against his old teammates. Of course, we've got Arteezy as well as Zai leaving EG. EG probably the biggest wild card, I would say, with their new roster. Sumail, not a particularly proven player at all, but seen as a fantastic talent. So
I see him as the total dark horse, where this event, Sumail may come out of the woodwork and totally shine and live up to all the hype, but he's also an inexperienced 15-year-old player. So, I mean, the big LAN, the big stage, it's just a different setup. It takes a little while to get those LAN jitters out.
I mean, Charlie has had success as a manager with some of these young players, but I mean, ultimately, it really comes down to the player. Is the player able to focus? Can they get past all the LAN jitters, as you mentioned, as well as just communicate with their teammates when there are issues and stay focused? We'll have to see. But, of course, they also bring in AUI 2000, and obviously there's the Universe AUI 2000 bromance, or romance, however you want to look at it. But beyond that, I guess the question is going to be, will he gel? EG did not do particularly well at D2L, especially given what this team has achieved historically. And that was not a very stacked LAN. eHome, I think, was a bit underrated going into that. Nobody really knew what to expect. I think they're a team that will make a decent run at DAC, but that said, it's not like it's newbie or something.
I think
they just ran over everyone at the
I would
tournament.
disagree. I think I was impressed by EG more than I was impressed by Cloud9 end of the day, because EG had a new roster, but they also had like a 15-year-old playing his first LAN. Like, end of the day, the fact they did as well as they did, got third place, they fell to Aces Polar, who were like the best team in the Western scene at that, like the most stable and one of the strongest Western teams at the time.
For like a couple weeks.
It's
true, but it's not really saying that much. It was like maybe 3-4 weeks of consistent play.
I'm starting to notice a pattern here. It's like everyone disagree with Parker Day today.
Good. You got to prove you all wrong.
I think it's more he's
I'm
disagreed
just
all
going to shake it off, okay?
I like
That's
that pattern.
it, you know?
I'm going to prove you all wrong, and you'll see. Just wait until Radiant off lane.
You are right, though. It is fair to keep in mind that it was Sumail's first LAN. He is a young player, and they still did pretty well. But that's not going to be good enough for DAC. Doing pretty well for your first LAN, that's fine. He's going to be playing with the big boys. He's going to have to step it up a lot if they want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is Sumail will be owning from the Dire offlane for you.
They just need to give him Dire offlane SF, Yule's Blink Rush. That's what he's going to be
You know,
doing.
you were saying you think that's the new thing, the Yules, not just a pub tactic. You think we'll see more of it moving
I think
forward?
it's viable. It's just like the burst damage is insane. It's actually like, I mean, it's like a 2K insta, like you insta KO like any hero that doesn't have BKB, or a insta like Blade Fury like a Jug. I guess against Jug it doesn't work, but
most heroes though, they just
it's
Do
pretty
you
legit.
agree, Senator, or do you think it's a little gimmicky?
I think it's gimmicky because you could say the alternative is to get the Shadow Blade, right?
Yeah.
Which provides more for the Shadow Fiend in some aspects and less in others. So the good thing about Yules is that you have constant mana flow, so it's really easy to Shadow Raise farm a lot with the build-up and in the jungle. But the Shadow Blade gives damage and attack speed for Shadow Fiend, which is obviously amazing, right? So
It's got counters though, is the thing. The
That's the
Yules,
thing,
Yules
right?
Blink is like a guaranteed KO on a lot of heroes.
yeah.
Like 90% of heroes in the game is just an insta KO.
The
and
Shadow
then
Blade, you have sentries. You come prepare with a gem.
Yeah.
The Shadow Fiend has a limited time to set up
The
with that as well.
Yules Blink also can be used as an escape, like where if you're being ganked, you can, or you took some damage, you can Yules and then blink out. I think there's other kind of practical. I don't know. I
But
think Yules is just.
then
OP
again,
item.
the Yules build, it does give move speed, but I think in terms of escapability, if you have Yules Blink, I want to say that's better than Shadow Blade for getting away. But else, just Yules alone, I think Shadow Blade is still the better item for that. But
Okay.
what was I getting at?
I don't
Damn
think
it,
it's like the best build necessarily. I think it's a
No.
situational build.
and it's completely hard countered by BKB, which a lot of heroes will be getting. Like you can't Yules into Requiem before the BKB gets off,
Yeah.
right? If you're just spamming BKB when you land, you don't take damage. I think there's like some weird interactions where sometimes you can get the
Maybe if
stun
you-
off before BKB or get the damage out, but I think
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
if you time it perfectly, you'll still BKB first. So
right.
I don't know. Maybe we'll see it.
Okay.
And if anyone pulls it out, it's probably Sumail.
Yeah, I think we can certainly expect him to play some Shadow Fiend. There's no doubt about that. Let's talk about the other East or Western teams we have here, Secret and Hellraisers. Let's start with Team Secret. They've had some roster changes of their own, with Zion Arteezy now joining the shuffle. This looks like a powerhouse, but we've just seen absolutely nothing. Team Secret living up to their name. Frankly, I don't really know what to expect. You look at this lineup, and it's hard to imagine them not putting up results, but we've seen all-star lineups that can't put up said results.
Man, back when Arteezy got haircuts.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen him lately? Oh
yeah.
my, that boy. He's going through his wild late teen years, I guess. But
Yeah.
obviously, fantastic talents, individually skilled, out the wazoo.
Oh, yeah.
They can go. Every single player on this team can outskill pretty much anyone else in the world, I would say. But that said, question is, will they gel? Will they have good team synergy? Will they find strategies that work? And also, can they do it in time? Because the land's coming quickly. And honestly, Secret, I think, is the team that everyone probably knows least about coming into this event. EG showed a little bit at D12, not a whole lot, but a little bit. Cloud9 showed a little bit in the DAC qualifiers. Most of the Chinese teams have been playing at least a little bit leading into this tournament. I think we saw Newbie in a couple of Chinese events towards the end of last year. They played in the IESF tournament, not that it was particularly serious for them. We saw Vici gaming at the Summit. A lot of the other Chinese powerhouses we've seen on and off. But Secret, new roster, potentially a whole new play style. And
Yeah.
along with the roster changes, they've now moved Kuroki back into support. That's the rumor. So we'll have to see if that transition works out for him.
I think in theory, for me, this version should work really well for Secret. Like the way the game is played right now, we have longer games. They're really good at playing late game and strategizing for that. They have players that are extremely good at playing with farm. Right, Arteezy loves playing the carries that really carry. You have Zai, who used to play greedy support, which is now rumored to play offlane. I think it could be the biggest strength and the biggest weakness of Secret, I think, is that their drafts are going to really revolve around getting farm. And if you shut them down in that, their drafts might end up being too greedy. I don't know if... I was thinking they might go in a direction somewhat to what Cloud9 used to play, and Cloud9 will be going somewhat in the direction of what Secret used to play with their new support, so they might be like switching around based on who's playing what on the teams. But I think for this version, the Cloud9 way of playing the game, at least the old Cloud9 way of playing, will be really good. And if Secret can pull that out, I think they can get good results.
It seems like on the last patch, Secret's playstyle was sort of almost lose the lanes a little bit, not really do too much early on, the mid game be a little more quiet, and then that late game decision making is where they just seem to outclass a lot of the competition.
Partially, it was also their draft. They were picking a lot of Faceless Void, a lot of Tidehunter, very team fight heavy compositions. But that said, they also executed well. Like we've seen teams draft that way, and then they whiff a Ravage. The Void doesn't carry a TP scroll, and you miss those first few team fights, and the whole draft falls apart. So their game understanding is fantastic, and if they can execute the game plans the way they want to, then I mean, they're a team where I feel like I could see them not even finishing top 8. I could see this team finishing top 3. I just don't know.
I think it's. I think at the same. I mean, you mentioned the greedy drafts. I think at the same time, like S4 has never been a greedy player. Like back in the Alliance days,
the one odd
he
one out.
was. always, but that's the thing. Like, I don't know how S4 and Zai are going to work with Zai in the offlane, because Zai, who knows what kind of heroes pool he's got, whether he's going to be playing that more Funnick or Admiral Bulldog farming offlaner role, or if he's going to be more of the space carrier. I think it's definitely going to be more farm oriented because you've got S4 mid. We'll see probably quite a bit. I imagine heroes like Magnus for S4 are going to be picked a lot during this tournament. And that's where, I mean, late game Magnus for S4 is just a game winner. So I think Secret's a team I could see maybe having a rough group stage, but they've got such good talent and understanding of the game. They'll pick up strategies from other teams, see what works, see what beat them, and then just improve upon it and implement it into their own playstyle. So
kind of like the old Navi in a lot of ways, where maybe they even end up dropping down
the old Navi, yeah,
old Navi,
yeah.
They would maybe not even have a good group stage. Sometimes
Navi.
start off.
I would say like
the
newbie, like what newbie did at TI4. Newbie doing the group stages had no idea what to pick or play, but then they just saw what other teams doing and like, oh, I guess these are the heroes we need to pick. They did it, and then they were just better at it.
They were good at copy pasting.
And they
added their own
in a
role
nutshell.
They had a few of their own picks. Like they brought out the Doom, which other teams weren't picking. Like they saw these strats other teams were using. Like, this is the play style we've got to use, but this hero works better in it, and these teams don't realize. Like something like the Doom, or whatever it may be. So,
yep.
I think that's a lot of what's going to happen. Where a team that does well on the group stage may not, based on drafting and strategy, may not do as well in the main event because teams will figure it out. And
speaking of newbie, I mean, we've been talking about the Western teams and the shuffles, but
yeah, what are we doing? Like, this is
the
China,
discussion
man.
really should
Come
start
on.
with newbie.
Oh, yeah?
The TI4 champions, they've won most of the major lands that they've played at since TI4. By their own admission, they haven't practiced at all. Now, some teams talk about not practicing that much. Like, from everything that Newbie's been saying, how it was interviewed, I believe it was Translate on Team Liquid, they have been no practice. They're doing a lot of promotions. They're kind of living like the post-Super Bowl life, where you go to Disney World, you have your endorsements, but
you're a star.
Of course, losing Shao 8, a lot of people would look at that as a huge blow. Rabbit, maybe a bit more individually or mechanically gifted coming onto the team, but at first it felt like they were struggling to find a rhythm as a team. But I look at Newbie as they're the team that can just show up and they'll just press a button and suddenly they're on fire. They're making a deep run in the tournament. They're slaying people left and right, and I don't know. I think this is their tournament. They're going to go deep, and I don't think it's a big surprise to say that, but they're a team that can easily be forgotten simply because they have been quiet. They haven't been playing in a whole lot of events as of late. They certainly haven't been practicing, but not a team to sleep on.
Well, where does that leave us relative to the other Chinese teams? LGD, Vici, and IG all also invited. Do you think we're on somewhat level playing field here? Do you think Newbie obviously stands above the others?
Well, Vici's in an interesting place. There was a recent rumor that they might be looking to kick Black. Black, it was news to him, said, I'm just going to play so well that they can't kick me even if they want to. So
it was one of the best public statements I've ever seen in Dota. Just like, I'm just going to give 110%. Like, you go, Black.
He has a great attitude. Yeah. But, I mean, that could be a sign that perhaps there's some dissension amongst the ranks, a little bit of issues behind the scenes. Obviously, they won the Summit, too. They look strong coming into this tournament for sure. But they have had, by FY's own admission, communication issues, mostly centering around Black, where it's not, I mean, considering that he's a German in China, he's doing really well. I don't think anyone could be expected to do better, but end of the day, there is a bit of a language barrier. And, I mean, historically, Black has kind of struggled to find a team that he's really made a long-term home in. So I wonder if it's the same pattern repeating. I hope it's not. I love the guy, hard worker. I feel like he's matured a lot over the past couple of years, but that said, who knows?
Even just seeing him from TI4 to the Summit 2, he just seemed to be generally just happier, really communicating with the team a lot, even just driving around Vici Gaming at the Summit, seeing how they interact, constantly laughing and back and forth, and you could tell that they were helping Black learn Chinese and also making fun of him at the same time, kind of all in good jest.
I think a lot of making fun of him.
How could you tell that if you don't understand it
yourself? Everybody was smiling and high-fiving. I don't know. It looked like
maybe they were all making fun of you.
Maybe that's possible. Maybe they were bonding around me. I mean, hey, that's okay. I'm all right with it. Make fun of the driver. What are you going to do?
To me, the key play is ice. I think if you want to go big in a far in a tournament, especially a tournament that goes over 2 weeks, where teams will, if you're drafting the same thing every game and figuring you out, you'll just get beaten by teams figuring out. Having a creative player who's got one of the most diverse hero pools for an offlane, like most offlaners have like 2 to 3 go-to heroes. It's part of the reason why Fly was rumored to not be playing with Secret anymore. But Ice will pull out anything imaginable in the offlane. Like, he's done solo offlane Undying, he's done Juggernaut in the offlane, he's
Enigma
done Brood.
going back to DK, when no one else was even picking the hero as anything except a jungler.
To me, that versatility is one of his versatility is their biggest strength. I mean, there's some go-to heroes that they put like super on, like you kind of expect the Ember Spirit type heroes for him, but it's definitely And then I think Black as well, very versatile in the carry. I mean, I feel like all carries have to be very versatile. That's very, like, we bring up sets how, like, Mushi or most carries nowadays are playing a different hero, Illidan and Starlight. I think that's normal for carries, because the carry pick is always, like, your 4th or 5th pick in the draft. But it's very unusual for offlaners to play, like, 15 different heroes in their just viable hero pool.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree.
Elder Titan.
Elder Titan.
He's one of the few players that could definitely expect to see it come out. So,
Yeah.
What do you guys think about LGD and IG? Because IG, as of late, have really been hit or miss. Chuan kind of disappeared, went to Red Bull Seattle. I mean, by all admissions, he had a great time hanging out with Jimmy, with Demon, but end of the day, this is Chuan. TI2 winner. The guy has played at the absolute top of the mountain, and this team has a lot of very individually talented players.
This team's in struggle city.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
You know, I think everything comes down to Luo. Not as much of his play, but he's the captain leader for this team. He's drafting for him. I feel like he's going to just man up and be like, guys, we can do, like, I feel like he's the one who's going to just have, him and Chuan both are going to be like the motivational people for this team to get everyone motivated on the same page. If they get momentum, they can do well, but if they have a bat slow side, I just see them doing terribly.
There was such a long period where 430 was throwing this team on his back, when partially because of the way they drafted. They would pick his Ember Spirit, sometimes even a Magnus to complement it, but he was carrying games really hard solo. It went on for months, but at some point, that just doesn't cut it. The whole team has to play together.
It reminded me of MVP Phoenix a little bit at Starladder this season, where we saw a few games where QO on his Ember Spirit just destroying games, but it's like he's got 90% of the kills. Everyone else on his team is completely poor, and it's kind of showy, and you almost feel like, hey, maybe they can come back, but it's just not sustainable. You can't win a tournament based on that kind of 1+4 strategy.
Yeah, that game was the one game that stood out to me from that Starladder. I think QO was like, it was like the best Ember Spirit performance up to that stage of the game ever statistically, and they still lost.
Yeah,
because
I think so.
End of the day, it's very rare for a player to be able to carry a game that hard solo, and certainly consistently. This is the nature of this tournament. It's a very grindy affair, right? You're playing a big round robin, then you go into a big bracket. In some of the cases, these teams have to play in the wild card as well. Like, you're not going to get away with just a one-shot wonder. One player just gets hot for a game or two. You know, suddenly you 2-0 a team, you're into the winter bracket finals. It doesn't work like that here. So consistency is going to be key. Maybe you can have a weaker group stage and then make a run, but at some point you got to start putting wins together and stringing them together, really.
So where does that leave us with LGD?
They're good. They're predictable, but they're very good. Like, this team is, I think the team that was talked about to have, like, after the reshuffle post TI4 is definitely talked about as having, basically being the team that won. They got Sylar, MMY, Faith all together around Yao, who's been doing a pretty solid job captaining, but
all-star lineup right there.
Their drafts, their heroes, I feel it's the same problem LGD's had even going back to TI2. You know every single pick. Like, you just know what's coming your way. They're very good at it, but
lots of morphling, huh?
They're very easy to read. Nowadays, it's like the first pick Ember Spirit. Yao basically plays Ember Spirit or Invoker every single game. And they kind of play around that a lot as him being that kind of tempo controller.
Now, that said, maybe things will change with the new version.
Yeah,
the fact that I expect all the teams are going to surprise us, but I think the teams that are predictable are going to have a tough time making a really deep run.
I would agree. Now, I want to go back to Hellraisers, just because they're that one last Western team, and also they are a big dark horse. Qualifying through the European qualifier, beating Power Rangers in the finals. I don't think anyone really would have bet that it would be HRPR in the finals, let alone Hellraisers being the team that qualifies through.
Villat actually predicted that. Before the qualifier started, he said HR are going to win the qualifier.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned Villat.
Shout out to you, Villat.
Shout out to Villat.
You know your CIS
I think it was
teams.
after their first match in the qualifier.
Was it? Okay.
But yeah, either way, he did predict it fairly early on.
So,
well, you cast these guys at Starladder. What are your thoughts on them? They had a stand in there.
Yeah,
but you've cast a lot of them even before that.
I think they're hot right. I think Parker said it right a few weeks ago. They're hot right now. They're on a good streak. This seems to be a patch that they gel with. They tend to play that kind of CIS style, very aggressive. They love the face rush kind of strategy, the troll, the axe. So that's really hot right now. I think they're just they have the play style for the patch for what's hot right now. I think if there's something crazy that comes into this tournament to start it off, if there's a very obvious counter to like the axe troll early on, I think this team's going to struggle a lot.
I would agree. That said, I do want to just mention, I think Dread has really stepped his game up. There was a period, you were casting a game with Ben, I'll never forget it, where he went poor man shield jungle axe, like right off the bat.
It just makes no sense.
And the funny part was I had cast Dread's axe like 2 months before that. They beat Navi in like 20 minutes. Like,
yeah.
And this was back when Navi was pretty good. And they just wrecked them. But he's really stepped his game up. I think he took some of the Russian community's criticism to heart, where they basically said he's just a clown, a very entertaining streamer, kind of in the mold of Sing Sing, except professionally he had not really been achieving much at the time, whereas Sing Sing obviously doing a lot in Cloud9 back then. And I think it kind of rubbed him the wrong way. So he's got kind of a chip on his shoulder, and when they're making runs, Dread is making a lot of plays. So he's kind of my key player on this team that I really look to carry them and just step his game up in the big clutch moments.
What do you think about HR right now, Sind?
I think, just to finish off on Dread, I think he's the kind of player that's really good to have on your team because I think he's really good for the morale. Like, if you have that entertaining kind of guy and you guys are doing well, I think that's going to help you a lot in team building and in keeping the momentum if you're doing well. At the same time, he's also an experienced player, so I think he knows how to deal with losses, which a lot of the other players don't have so much competitive experience, so having an old hog like him on the team can actually be really useful.
Old hog.
Jeez.
Well, I take him out to pasture.
He thinks everyone's old, man. First me, Suns fan.
This guy's like 45. So, I think... for HR...
BTS's best kept secret.
HR, I don't think are going to make top 8. I'm going to make that as the statement. I think
I don't think so
9th to 12th is where I see that team right now. Like you said, I think they're really good at the version. I agree with everything you guys have said. I think Dread for me is the one that's been... In a sense, it's also easier for him to be outstanding than the others because we don't really have that much frame of reference for them, right? For Dread, you could see, compared to past play, the others kind of came out of nowhere and have all been playing solidly. No superstar play for me, but just everyone's playing really well. Yeah. But Dread is the most improved one because he's the only one, quote-unquote, who is improved, right? Because the other ones just started. So, but I think they're a good team. The problem for, exactly like you said, is that if anything changes with the play style or even if the other teams play the same style as HR, I think they might fall on individual skill to the big Chinese teams, for example. I don't think they're in the league of the 4 big Chinese we talked about, and maybe the 5th and 6th strongest Chinese teams also better, and then can their momentum right now carry them to 7th, 8th over the experience of other teams? I don't think so.
Yeah, I do think that reading into the Star Ladder results where they were one of the first teams eliminated is just, you should really just throw that out.
They had a stand-in.
Yeah, they had to say Godin was not able to attend the event. Same with Power Rangers. J4, their captain, wasn't at the event either. So I think for both those teams, Star Ladder was just not something you need to read into.
It was a real disappointment because it could have been a really good training grounds for this event. But
well, especially because I think Empire and Aces Polar are as good as these teams, if not even slightly better. They didn't qualify, so you can argue either way. But I feel like that was based on Hellraisers being ahead with the drafting and strategizing. I think individually, and as far as team play go, those teams are on par or better. Like Empire have amazing, talented players with their Resolution, Yoki, and all her dance. Obviously, they're not here, but that to me is where Hellraisers. It's always been about draft, but like they're not over a long tournament. You're not going to be able to outdraft your tournament day after day.
They don't have LAN results, right? That's the big difference here. Empire, even though they only just won a Star Ladder, and granted this one was a bit weakened in terms of the field, they had gone deep at previous Star Ladders. They ended up taking down EG at that Star Ladder where DK just went off, and I don't even think they dropped a game the entire tournament. Empire did really well at that event, so Empire has some experience, and I think they've proven themselves more on the LAN stage, but. I do look at Hellraisers as a team that has a lot to prove, and even if they do finish 9th through 12th, even if they finish bottom 4, end of the day, it's a great experience for them, and it bodes well that they make it here, that they get to expose themselves to the Chinese play style. Obviously, there's a ton of Chinese teams here, not only Chinese, but I think they're going to come back to the Western scene, and regardless of how the tournament goes for them, they'll be revitalized and just feel like they can see where they need to go.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, guys, we've got about 20 minutes till our first game starts, and at this rate, we're not going to get through every team because we are.
Don't worry, we'll power through.
Some wordy men here. So okay, we need to power through.
We're like 6 teams left in 10 minutes, easy. We got 1 minute
like
per
that.
team.
All right, I like the confidence here. eHome and Big God. Next two, I want to talk about. Let's go with eHome.
Are we? Oh, okay.
Okay, there we go. Here we go. This is a qualified team. So Tongfu, CDEC, eHome, and Big God. The latter two.
I'll just say some teams, but that's all right.
I'll say quickly, eHome. One of my very favorite teams to watch right now. Inflame, this guy is a player. Solo mid invoker, jungle bloodseeker. He's playing support. He could play offlane. This guy could do it all. To me, he's the new Lanham. You look at Lanham back in Rattlesnake, he would play jungle Enchantress. He'd play one position Storm Spirit. The guy would go offlane on Clockwork. He did it all, and I think Inflame is going to be the next Lanham. Maybe not yet, but moving forward. I love watching this team. They're drafting some, frankly, weird shit. Mushi is running a jungle Ursa. They like to play very greedy with their lanes, though, and I think teams are going to study the replays. So They better have a plan B because teams are going to have seen this. They showed it a lot during the Asia qualifiers.
Is Mushi still drafting with? He was. What was it?
Inflame is.
Inflame is
okay.
he's the
They were
captain,
doing
so-
the Riki Bloodseeker bands. They were doing like the throw, or it was a Riki Huskar. They were doing the throwaway bands to get started. Was that Ehome or was that Mushi's last?
That was
team?
Mushi's
That was
old team.
Mushi's last team.
Okay,
But
not doing that anymore?
speaking of Bloodseeker, they like their jungle Bloodseeker for Inflame. They've also been running Bloodseeker Zeus. So
Ooh, that combo.
it's been nerfed pretty heavily from when the Bloodseeker changes
It's
first
still
came out.
good.
It's still really strong.
It's still
I think
good.
we may see it at least occasionally as kind of a spicy pocket strat at this tournament.
It's gross.
I wanna see Ohio. He was my MVP for TI3, I think.
I agree.
He played extremely well. I said it early in the main event that for me Orange was going to place top 3 and they made it. I think they should have been in the grand finals of that event. I think they messed up and gave Navi a freebie in the last game that they lost, and they could have definitely made it there. That's not taking anything.
Navi
away
gave
from
Navi got a freebie from them as well.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, Navi at the
was
same
a
time
going theme.
deserved to win that game after pulling it back. But at the same time, when you look at it, the denied Aegis, which is going to come back and haunt them forever.
just throws in general.
Mushi not performing on OD in late game. I still think that's for me the only weakness of Mushi is his late game decision making. He is so good in lane. He has a very diverse hero pool, extremely good player, but sometimes he falls short when it comes to the clutch decisions. We saw it at TI3. We've seen it in some games for DK as well, where Mushi lost them a game simply by making a weird play in the late game. And if they play solidly, and if Ohio gets to play some of his strongest heroes, and Mushi does well in late game, for me, this team can go top 4.
Well,
I think they're
on the note of Ohio, David, you have said you think Ohio's kind of the weak link right now.
Yeah,
Do you want to talk more about that?
I think it's more a hero pool thing. Like TI3, I think it was the MVP because there was a few heroes that really suited him. Back then, offlaners were expected to get very little. Nowadays, offlaners get more farm, but we got to move. Next team.
All right. You guys, thank God. I was seriously, that was just. I was like, we had 10 minutes to do like 6 teams,
and then they
just
just kept
like
talking.
half of our
Like,
time for one team.
I'm
so.
just thinking like you guys
two
just
words.
done.
Then. Two
All
words
right.
each.
Big God, what do we think?
Big God.
Big God. All right, good. Now, Burning, Xiao 8, ROTK, Lanham, and Ice. There's not a third ice there. Don't get confused. There's a double ice and a triple ice.
This team's hyped. That's all I got.
Oh, yeah.
This team's hyped. They could be amazing. They could be terrible. I'm just hyped to see them play.
Well, out of
Team-
time. Out of
Team
time.
Bolt Man,
Next
They'll
team.
be fun to
Next
watch.
team.
I'm not expecting much.
Yeah.
They don't seem that serious.
Yeah.
$3 million prize pool coming their way. They'll get serious.
All right. I don't know, man. I was
We'll
casting
see.
their qualifiers. They didn't seem serious to me.
Qualifiers, schmalifiers.
That's just because they knew they were going to qualify.
All right.
Easy peasy. All right,
Now,
so
They
moving
barely
forward.
qualified.
Tong Fu and CDEC, the last remaining qualified teams from the Asian qualifier. Let's start with Tong Fu. They've been looking pretty decent recently, actually.
Where did this Tong Fu come from? Tong Fu, over the past, 5 months, has done nothing in China. And then all of a sudden, they come out. They end up, I think they finished first overall in the qualifier, or maybe second. But either way, they lost 4 to 6 games in the entire thing. And
They dominated.
I have no idea what to
They do
expect.
really well against the tier 2 teams. I think even though they've been missing, it's just because all the tournaments have been there's LGD, IG, Newbie, Vici, and they don't do well against these teams. This is a team I see not getting, at best they get maybe 9th, 10th. Maybe they squeak into the top 8, but they're a good team. They just don't have the star power.
Okay.
Yeah. So CDEC, the last team for the Asian qualifiers. Sad we didn't get to see them at Star Ladder. There were some visa issues, and same with IG for that matter. They've been looking pretty hot recently as well, but Star Ladder would have been a great sample to see how they fare against some of the Western
They have
teams.
2 players playing the half position.
The coach is back, man.
They get a lot
Coach
of farm.
Mikasa.
There you go.
More fun than the one position.
That's
I'm
insane.
pretty sure a lot of the viewers have probably seen Mikasa standing
Yeah.
in for newbie when they had players take a break. This guy can play.
Well,
He's not
CDEC
just
brought
a
him in
coach.
as a coach, but then one of their players left, and now they're like, well, you're in. You're no longer coach.
Okay.
That's pretty much. It was only a month ago where he was coaching, and suddenly he's playing for him. So
All right.
I don't see this team doing very well, though, personally. I think they. They just
You
don't
don't
like
see
it.
any-
Blunt,
doing well,
direct,
do you?
straightforward. I don't see them going anywhere. Moving on.
I would agree. I don't think they do much.
Do you think they're weaker than Tong Fu right now?
All right. And,
Yes.
And
Yes.
I guess we've got SEA to talk about
Yes,
here.
don't worry. I got notes, my
No,
man. Our
no.
producer has no faith in the
My
the
man.
panel here. My man on the panel, or on the working the production desk. We got MVP Phoenix coming up next. The 2 SEA teams, MVP Phoenix and Rave. MVP Phoenix, we did get to see it Star Ladder, of course, hailing from South Korea, and they looked better than they did at the last Star Ladder they played at the most recent one, but still not really the most overwhelming results.
I think they caught a lot of teams off guard with some unusual picks, unusual play style.
That
Not something the
Warlock.
CIS team. Yeah, the Warlock's a great example. The offlane Bristle Wisp, which other teams were running Bristleback like Navi,
Yeah.
but the offlane Bristle Wisp. Oh my God, they just destroyed
What
them.
is in Kiwo's hair in that picture? Is
I
that?
don't know. Are we trying to move quickly?
Oh yeah,
here,
we're
or-
going quickly. Sorry about that.
My
So-
main, this team
okay,
at
we have time
Starlight,
for this.
despite the fact they did better than in Pass Out, they worried me just because they had so many weak links in all their games. Like Cure was dominating, but then the games they're winning was purely these team fight drafts with Warlock. So I just don't think they just need more players having higher impact rather than just Cure.
Yeah.
Well, David definitely he's biased. He's rooting against the Koreans because otherwise he's lost like another bet. And
I think the weaker.
Lord knows what happens at that point.
I think they're the weaker of the two SCA representatives.
Okay,
I think
you think Rave will make
All right, well, then
better
talk to us
or-
about Rave a little bit, Parker. What do we got going on there?
Rave are good. They're much more. I feel like they're much more the full package. They're a bit more balanced as far as all their cores are doing well. Jay is fitting in really well in the carry role, and Ninja Boogie as captain has been to me the big player as far as he plays any role. He's just captain, a great leader, and I think this team doesn't have like any glaring weaknesses. At the same time, they don't have any Ryu. I think has probably been really impressive for me on the mid lane, but it's still not like quite the same star power that you expect from some of the other teams. But
I will say they've struggled to close out games when they hold leads.
Yeah.
So to me, a team that will often get ahead early, but against the top Chinese teams, against the top Western teams, we're talking about Secret's fantastic late game. I think Rave's going to have a very tough time because they're generally a team that gets ahead early, but against those teams, that's not good enough. You have to be able to close it out. So.
Yeah, I think out of the two SEA teams, they have the biggest chance at top 8. I would agree with Gods on that.
Yeah.
And the MVP just, even at Starlighter, kind of seemed like a one-trick pony, maybe 2 tricks, but not more than
Slark
that.
and Ember
really.
Sphere, those
Yeah.
are the 2 tricks.
Oh, Warlock.
Whatever.
Warlock.
Oh, yeah,
to me, kind of the
Warlock's up
biggest
there.
trick, but
All right, 3-trick pony.
if they,
Not quite a horse though.
if they, if
I mean,
they, if they
Slark,
get a
Slark
little
just
bit
wins you
more.
game. Slark doesn't win you games on its own end of the day as well. So
However,
Yeah.
they could also, like, MVP is one of those teams that you really never know what you're going to get. I mean, they could also just show up and have a couple of other strategies, and then suddenly, if the team start banning out Warlock, they pull out that techies that they're just really good with and just start winning games with that. I don't know. I think
It's possible.
it's like MVP's biggest strength and weakness at the same time is that I think they're good at playing different heroes, but the weakness is they kind of have to. Because if they don't, they just lose on the other team's game. I don't think they're
Yeah.
good enough to beat the others. At the
Almost reminds me of some of Godblack's old teams where
Yeah.
it's like they do something different, but then they'd also run it into the ground a little bit, and then that's where teams start to figure out their drafts. And once you take away the unusual picks, they just weren't solid enough to take on the top teams.
Yeah.
So next team.
All right, a good way to summarize it. So now we move into the wild cards. We're at about the 10-minute countdown here, folks. Only 6 teams left, and wild cards are where we start for today.
Okay.
All right,
Cool.
that's where our games are
So we've
getting
talked
started.
about everything else than what's actually
All right.
going on today.
Well, the goal was
Yeah.
to start big and funnel down, but beyond the schedule, holding true.
It's
here.
a very deep funnel.
Yes, indeed. So these are our 6 teams here: Na'Vi and Power Rangers, the 2 from the West. And of course, you'll recognize them. We've got the Hyper Glory team, HGT, Speed Gaming, the Energy Pacemaker, one of Shannon's favorites, and well, Wings Gaming, perhaps working on that Wingstop sponsor.
Red Bull sponsor. What are you talking about?
Oh yeah, they're growing the wings. There you go. Good.
I'll
call.
hook him up.
So, kind of more more broad strokes here for these 6 teams. Who are we looking at as kind of the top
How much
teams?
did they pay you for that?
Yeah. What are we looking at in terms of the top teams here? Favorites, I guess, maybe focusing in on Na'Vi and PR, as they're the teams that kind of stand out of the group.
Yeah, well, from the Western scene, obviously, and then I would say
HGT,
CDEC and
China, baby.
Or sorry, HGT, yeah, the big team
HGT,
that stands
yeah.
out from Asia.
It's-
So I don't know what to make of this Na'Vi team, man. They kick FNG. FNG starts owning as soon as he leaves the team, and frankly, the Goblet pick has been uninspiring. Vangscore, who came in as the hottest support in CIS, has been underwhelming as of late. Havost has actually been, I would say, their best player, along with Dendi. These two have really stepped up. Funnick used to be the stalwart, reliable offlaner, hasn't been. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I still don't give up on this lineup just because they're players that have achieved a lot historically, but yeah, they don't have a whole lot of time to start pulling it together.
Teams are not going to give Dendy Magnus as well. I see that as just like a first ban against
They,
Na'Vi.
all their games that they started winning were like this Magnus troll for Havost.
Magnus
every game,
Jug,
the void
yeah.
off lane for Funnick.
Yeah.
If you take that away, it felt like they didn't really have a plan B. And again, with Goblet drafting, sometimes that has been the issue for his teams in the past. Has some really strong strats, but then can't necessarily adapt as well when those pocket strats are taken away.
I'm sure they'll have they're probably preparing drafts based on that Magnus is going to be banned, but it's like that was just what they were looking best with. So
Yes.
Yeah.
teams will take it away, and then we'll see what Na'Vi come up with instead, maybe.
I think it's probably, out of this pool of teams, I think we're going to have HGT qualify, and then either Na'Vi or PR. And Navi or PR, I think, is a 50-50 at this point. I honestly don't know. PR are really good at beating Navi, but I think it's different. It's on LAN. It's a really big tournament where Navi has historically sometimes been able to really step up their game and do well. Like we talked about, they have Vanscore and Goblack who weren't on that old Navi, but still 3 of the old core are still there and can perform when it really matters. So I think it's really difficult to say. I have 2 predictions: HGT plus one of the Western teams, and one team is going to go 5-0. Yeah, in this, but I don't know which one.
To me, the two Chinese teams out of the 2 other teams to look out for, I think Speed Gaming and Wings both have a lot of upset potential. Wings, I was actually looking at as like a real contender. Unfortunately, they've had roster changes just not long ago. They had this really it's kind of the old Speed Gaming lineup where the old Speed Gaming line, which played like there was this epic match where DK had to play with 3 standards, and they took these Speed Gaming players to like play with Burning, and they beat Titan in like some 90-minute game at WPC. And it's like this 16-year-old kid playing with Burning, who was his idol. It was really cool. But they became this Wings team. And unfortunately, they've had roster changes. Some of these 16-year-old kids apparently weren't allowed to play. They had to stay at home.
Wow.
Had to focus on their studies. I don't know what it was, but some people were telling me they had to change their roster.
So at this point, we just have no idea.
They may have some upset potential. Speed Gaming, absolutely. I see Speed Gaming able to take a game off of I mean, they did it. They were on par with HGT during the group stage. I feel like they could take a game off Navi or PR. It's just
they
it's
can
hard
beat
to say.
anyone in this group. They can also just get crushed by anyone in this group. I cast them during the qualifiers as well. One game, just run away with it early, never look back. Next game, get wrecked for minute 1.
Yeah.
Look for some creative picks from this team. They like to run their Storm Omni occasionally, so something to keep an eye on with Speed. And I think I agree with you, Sin. I think HGT, the most solid team overall here. And if I had to pick out of Navi PR, that's tough. I'd probably say Navi. But
I would favor Navi very
My
slightly.
heart's going with Power Rangers because you always get to play that song.
Oh, is that what it is? Get our VODs muted with the Power Rangers theme? I don't know if it's worth.
So far, we've been lucky.
Oh, good. So, yeah. I think Navi is just a little more experienced than PR. That's the difference. On paper, if we're online, just in a static game, I think PR has been performing a little better, but Navi just have the LAN experience, and I think jitters are kind of out of the question on that front. And I think they almost, I don't want to say want it more, but it just seems to be where that dynamic really thrives. Maybe they need it more is a better way to put it.
But they do have J4, correct, this time around. So
yes.
they have their
Actually,
captain drafted.
Did J4 make it? I haven't heard anything about his standings.
Every team is their full roster. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So
yeah. like Starladder, they didn't look great, but that's without their captain, their drafted. You really can't read too much in that. So I still give them a decent shot.
Yeah, I would say close to 50-50.
All right.
So, all right, that about wraps up our pre-show, folks. We're going to have another break here, about 5 minutes, and then our first series will start. Remember, there's going to be 3 streams running at once. Beyond the Summit that you're watching now, DotaCinema from our upstairs studio, and then Beyond the Summit 2, which Coddle Guy will be taking point on. So plenty of action to enjoy, and if you want to watch all the streams at once, there's a team page you can go to, and it's twitch.tv/DAC2015.
You can't watch them all at once, though. You can go multi-Twitch that.
Well, yeah, but you can use that to populate your multi-Twitch. There you go. But that's where you can find the official resources.
Multi-Twitch is a little overrated. You can't really watch 3 games at once anyway.
That sounds like a challenge to me, LD. We'll see what we can do. So stick around, folks. Our first game of the Dota 2 Asia Championships is right around the corner.